Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Sunday, June 2nd, 2024, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Now Mind You podcast. Bow, 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 bow. This is episode 115 Combat. We are your hosts. I'm TJ.
Matt.
Bryce had a scheduling conflict, but he'll be back with us next week. As far as the docket is concerned for today, we will be going over two notable combat sports events. Matt's going to take us through the Queensbury versus Matchroom 5v5, 5 versus 5 that took place last night as of this recording. And then we'll both get into UFC 302, Makhachev versus Poirier that also took place last night as of this recording. Without further ado, Matt, take it away.
All right. So we had the Queensberry Promotions versus Matchroom Boxing card yesterday, the 5v5. So we have five matchups, 1 point per matchup, double points for the captains, so on and so forth. So the very first matchup that we had for the 5v5 last night was Hutchison versus Richards. So on one side, we have Willie Hutchinson. Willie Hutchinson is a Scottish guy, Scottish boxer. He's 25 years old, nicknamed Braveheart, 6'1". This fight was at light heavyweight, 175. This was for the, I believe, the silver. What was this? For the WBC silver light heavyweight title. So basically like an interim WBC title for light heavyweight. Um, so it was a relatively important enough fight. On the other side of Willie Hutchinson, there was Craig Richards. Craig Richards is also from the UK. Well, not from the UK, he's from England. Whereas Willie was from Scotland. These two guys had pretty much a regional rivalry, from what I understand, coming into this fight. They had pretty closely matched dimensions, both standing about 6'1", similar reach. And man, these dudes fought. Craig Richards is 34 years old, but got about 10 years on this guy,
Mm.
on Willie Hutchinson. And man, you wouldn't have known it at the pace that they fought this fight. Um, I felt like Willie Hutchinson was able to edge it just a little bit on the back end, just with the volume. But this fight definitely just set the tone. Both guys threw a ton of punches at each other. Um, both, I think, just ultimately they put on a good show and they set the tone, and ultimately this put up the first set of points for Queensberry Promotions, where uh Willie Hutchinson was able to walk away with a unanimous decision victory after 12 rounds, and walk away with the vacant WBC light heavyweight title. Uh, After that, we get into Nick Ball versus Raymond Ford.
Mm.
Now, Nick is Nick the Wrecking Ball. Uh, Great nickname, especially going based off of his name. It's 5'2", 65-inch reach. These guys were fighting at the featherweight limit. This was for the WBA featherweight title that Ray Ford had recently won. Raymond Ford, nicknamed Ray Savage, is 5'6", 69-inch reach. He's definitely known to be a little bit more of a boxer, known to be a little more on his toes. Um, Came into prominence pretty much taking a last minute fight on a DAZN card, and then was pretty much able to make a name for himself going forward within that, and uh winning a fight with a TKO in the 12th round that he was losing back in March,
Mm.
to actually win this WBA featherweight title. And here he was doing his first title defense against Nicholas Ball. Nick Ball is Nick Ball is from Liverpool. Um, pretty much has been doing the best work that he could going forward. He made a name for himself fighting Ray Vargas for the WBC title and fighting to a draw. So, naturally that means he didn't get to go home with the title.
Mhm.
But again, it was a draw, and Ray Vargas is known as one of the top guys within that division. That fight was also back in March. So uh it wasn't on the same card, but the fights were basically the same week. Like Raymond Savage's fight was like March the 2nd, and his fight was like March the 8th.
Mm,
But these were both of this year. These were both like this past March. So going into this fight, the belief was with Nick Ball being the shorter guy, Ray Savage being the more athletic guy, the taller guy. He was going to move backwards, move around, box, and he did some of that. But ultimately, what we ended up getting was pretty much a 12-round dogfight. Um, Raymond Ford's camp and his corner was telling him at a certain point they needed him to box more, and he, explained to his corner it was on a hot mic. He was like, "I'm not going to be able to box tonight."
mm,
And for whatever reasons he had going on within, definitely something physically related, um he just, he decided to stand his ground. And trust me when I tell you, there's a lot of dog in him, but you just kind of saw, regardless of the fact that he's not bad at fighting on the inside, even though that wasn't considered to be his strength going into the fight, you see the difference in when you fight somebody with the dimensions that that style of fighting is tailored towards.
mm-hmm,
Like I mentioned earlier, Nick Ball is the smaller guy. He's 5'2", shorter limbs, but he works, when he gets on the inside there. And a lot of times he was able to get a little bit more off, than Raymond was before he was able to get in and out. Raymond has a 69-inch reach, Nick Ball has a 65-inch reach. And I just think over time he was able to kind of get the better of him at in a lot of those exchanges that they ended up having by either getting a good initial punch in that starts the exchange or by finishing the exchange with a really good shot as well.
mm-hmm,
Um, I felt like he either did one or the other, but both times he kind of came out of most of those exchanges as if he, got the better of it. Raymond was in it, don't get me wrong, but it was a tough fight. And Nick Ball walked away with a split decision where the cards were flipped. One judge had it 113, 115 for Ray Ford, and the other two had it 115, 113 for Nick Ball. So, everybody kind of was looking at certain things a certain way. So there are about 2 rounds there. Obviously, that means that probably swung, or really 1 round to be honest. But, it was a close fight. To me, it was the fight of the night on the card as far as just being action packed. There were no boring rounds. To be honest with you, there were no boring fights on this card. But man, it was just exciting front to back. Next up, we had what I felt, especially for me, to be the biggest shock of the night. We had Emma Williams versus Shiraz. Hama, Hamza Shiraz. There we go.
mm-hmm,
Hamza Shiraz. Against Austin Emma Williams. Emma Williams has been a staple of the zone Matchroom. Um, from Austin, Texas, 6 feet tall, 78-inch reach. Um, this is even a guy that I've met in person. Very nice guy. But trust me when I tell you, this guy can fight. He didn't get the nickname Ammo on accident.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You don't nickname, a guy doesn't get that nickname by having pillow hands. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, so, Ammo was coming into this fight, still looking to move a little bit further ahead within within the rankings and hopefully try to become a champion. And this was a final eliminator for the WBC middleweight world title. And man, he had a really hard time with this guy. Hamza Shiraz to me reminds me of like a prime, to a degree, like a prime Winky Wright, especially how he approached this fight because he's so tall. Um, he's 6'3" to Austin's, 6 feet, but man, it looked like he was 6'6", to be honest with you, just when you saw the height difference
Mm-hmm,
between the two. That paired up with the fact that Austin Williams was really trying to get low, plant his feet, and was just trying to get around the long arms of this guy. And it just felt like he could do nothing to break through his defenses, and everything that, Hamza threw was just damaging him. And ultimately, despite all the heart that he showed, he was ultimately stopped in the 11th round. Just from taking too many unanswered shots, the referee jumped in and stopped the fight in the 11th round, and Emma Williams ultimately was stopped. So that to me was probably the biggest shock. I mean, you never can guess, how any of these things are gonna go, right? You can only really just kind of go based on um what's the word I'm looking for? You can really just kind of go based on stats and previous fights and things like that.
Right.
But you know, and obviously I was pulling for Emma Williams, but this to me was the biggest shock. Him getting stopped was the biggest shock for me. Um, so going forward past that, we get into our next bout. The next fight we had on the card was actually a bout that was not initially planned. It got switched around due to an injury. We had Dmitry Bivol, who was initially supposed to fight Artur Beterbiev on this card. Artur Beterbiev ruptured his meniscus in training, and he ultimately was pulled from the card. And what we got instead was Malik Zanad. Malik Zanad was coming into this fight 22-0.
Mm.
He's an undefeated fighter. He's a guy that's gone on the roads, is taking the hard fights, had to go where he could go so he could get fights. And it's not too shabby of a 22-0. His 22-0 with 16 knockouts. And he was coming in against, Dmitry Bivol, who's in a lot of people's, list for some of the, one of the best boxers in the world right now.
Mhm.
22-0 with 12 KOs himself. Well, 11 KOs at the time. Guess that's a spoiler, right? But I mean, listen, to be fair, it was Dmitry Bivol taking a different guy on 2 weeks' notice, and Dmitry Bivol beat Canelo.
Right.
So, I think that kind of speaks for itself.
Right.
However, going into this fight, Malik Zanad gave a really good account for himself. He actually posed a little bit more of a challenge and actually touched Bivol, I think, a little bit more than people anticipated, definitely more than Bivol did. But he poked the bear. He did make one mistake and he poked the bear. Bivol drops him early, dropped him in like the first round, with like a 2-1 kind of combination. And then later on in about the third round, maybe it was the fourth round, I forget. Uh, as the round ended, Zanad decides to go get in Bivol's face and kind of push foreheads with him at the round as the round concluded. And like at the beginning of the next round, before the bell was even ringing, Bivol was up on his toes, bouncing in the corner. And it's like, it's obviously certain things that you see in intimidation tactics and stuff, but there's also like personality things you see come out of people, right? And that was definitely something that was out of character for him. And a lot of people always talk about Bivol, not hitting with a lot of power, being a very careful fighter, and not really, putting his foot on the gas and taking that extra risk to finish a guy. Not since Sullivan Barrera, which, to be honest with you, was the last finish he had, which was back in 2018. And he must have took that to heart because he was able to finish Malik Zanad in the sixth round. TKO, and accumulation of punches, just shot after shot. He was eventually able to find his jab and just start ramming the jab down the middle and eventually got him out of there with a right hand. Um, so, another successful title defense for Dmitry Bivol. And, all we can really do at this point is wait and see what would happen next. And, what the timeline is like for Artur Beterbiev and if we can even still get that fight.
Mm.
But Malik Zanad, he didn't come in there and, he didn't go out soft. Like I said, he did get stopped. He got stopped in 6. I mean, but ultimately that loss will age well because, it's Dmitry Bivol,
Hmm.
so something you can hold your head high for. Next we had our co-main event with Daniel Dubois and Flip Hergovich. But before I get into that, let me just also point out at this point, we have had a complete sweep for the matchroom side. Shiraz was a matchroom, was not a matchroom. I'm sorry, for the Queensberry side. Shiraz was for Queensberry, and he stopped Ammo Williams. Nick Ball, he was for Queensberry Promotions and he beat Ray Savage. And Hutchinson was for the Queensberry side and he beat Richards. So the only fight that was offered there, like I said, that didn't have to do with it was Bivol and Better Biev was also not there. So we moved on from that. Next, we had Dubois versus Hergovich. Dubois and Hergovich was for the IBF interim world title, um, which would pretty much put both of those, whoever won that fight, in line for a fight against our current undisputed heavyweight champion, um, Alexander Usyk. So being the
Mm,
IBF interim heavyweight champion would put you in line because being undisputed champion means he has to defend all of the heavyweight titles, the IBF title being one of them. Um, Daniel Dubois and Flip Hergovich have a little bit of history. From what's been explained previously, uh, there was some sparring in the gym before. There's always those type of rumors, but within that, basically, it was said that Daniel was run out of the gym in so many words.
mm,
Um, Obviously, he did not take kindly to that, and amongst other things. And eventually, this fight was booked. And Flip Hergovich is a guy that is, to be honest with you, a pretty good boxer. Heavyweight fighter. By the way, this fight is at heavyweight. Orthodox boxer. Came in 17-0, undefeated. This guy got the bronze medal in the 2016 Olympics. Um, he's beat some notable names. He actually holds a unanimous decision victory over the man in the main event, Li Zhang. They kind of have a little bit of history there as well. Now, on the other side of that, we have Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois is looking to once again uh, get another world title shot because this will be his second one. Daniel
mm,
Dubois actually had an opportunity at winning the world title before they were undisputed from Alexander Usyk back in August of 2023, and he lost. He was stopped in the ninth round. Within that fight, and even in one other fight where he was stopped by Joe Joyce, there was a little bit of a narrative about him that he was a quitter, right? Uh,
mm-hmm.
People were talking about that, he gave up and, he took the knee and X, Y, and Z. And it did turn out in one of those fights that he had an incredibly serious orbital eye injury, an incredibly serious orbital injury where like the bone was poking his brain.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I get it. I'm not judging him for it, but within the fan base and the fandom and stuff, that was some of the narrative was that, he was a quitter and that you can probably make this guy quit. And Flip Hergovich, again, was very vocal about the fact that he had had his way with Daniel Dubois before, no Diddy, and that he was going to do it again. And Daniel Dubois, even in a lot of the lead up, really seemed to have taken this a certain way and felt the way about it. And man, these guys, there was no feel out period, especially for this to be a heavyweight fight. There was a lot of action or a lot of punches thrown. This was a very violent fight. Um, Flip Hergovich in the opening rounds was just basically landing the right hand at will. Like he was hitting Daniel Dubois with this right hand damn near whenever he wanted to. But Daniel is, like I said, he kept hitting him with him, but Daniel was taking him. And you kind of saw a little bit of Flip's confidence slowly but surely start to wear. And you see his body language kind of start to shift a little bit. And I think he was starting to get tired. Realistically, I do think he was beginning to get tired. And, you could see that kind of as time was going on, that was kind of starting to almost kind of give strength to Daniel Dubois as he was pushing forward and kind of trying to push towards stopping Flip Hergovich. Flip was able also over the course of the fight, got two really bad cuts in his face, one of which I'm almost positive was caused by a headbutt, but it was ruled a punch. And the other one, I'm not so sure. Obviously, I'm not the man in the ring, but at least from the angle that I saw that, even when they showed it back in slow motion, one of those cuts definitely came from a head clash. Um, but ultimately, this fight was crazy, and Daniel Dubois was able to stop Flip Hergovich in the eighth round. After doing so much damage within the first minute of that eighth round, the doctor stepped in, the referee stopped the action for a second, and you know, after consulting with the doctor, the referee stopped the fight.
Mm,
So Daniel Dubois has become the interim IBF heavyweight champion, and he's in line to either uh possibly fight Anthony Joshua in the meantime, or sit out and wait for the result of Usyk and Tyson Fury and hopefully get a rematch. So
mm,
we'll see what happens there. Last but not least, in the 5v5, that also was another win for Queensberry, by the way. Last but least, in the 5v5, but not least, we had Deontay Wilder versus Zhilei Zhang. Now, Deontay Wilder's name, for the most part, speaks for itself, but if you are unfamiliar with Deontay Wilder came into this fight with 47 fights, 43 wins, and 42 KOs. He only has one fight that he has ever won that has gone to decision. Only one ever. Um, he infamously had a trilogy of fights with Tyson Fury between 2021 and 2018. This dude was WBC champion pretty much from Jesus. Like, I mean, he was WBC champion for a long time.
mm-hmm,
He's WBC champion really from like 2015. Yeah, from 2015 damn near to 2020. Yeah, for about 5 years with a lot of title defenses and a laundry list of KO victories in his path. On the other side of that, also Deontay Wilder is a bronze medalist in the Olympics. On the other side of that, we have Zhilei Zhang. Zhilei Zhang is also an Olympian, and he was the silver medalist in the 2008 Olympics, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the same Olympic Games that Deontay Wilder placed bronze in, which I was correct. It is. So they both were familiar with each other from, the Olympic tournament or what have you. Zhilei Zhang's been around for a while. He's definitely no spring chicken. He came into this fight 41 years old. Deontay Wilder, also not too much younger than him, coming in 38 years old. Man, both guys were kind of at a crossroads. Um, Zhilei Zhang coming off of a pretty hefty loss to Joseph Parker, and Deontay Wilder literally coming off of the same thing. Both guys coming off of a loss to Joseph Parker, looking to bounce back, looking to, kind of keep their name in the fire and keep their name in the circle as far as the upper echelon of the heavyweight division is concerned. A lot has been said about what's been going on lately with Deontay Wilder. He hasn't been able to pull the trigger, so on and so forth. And to be honest with you, this was a lot of the same. A lot of what we saw with Joseph Parker, a lot of probing jab, and then ultimately finally firing a right hand that it looked like he was trying to aim for like a little bit too long. Um, Zhang is a guy that's going to kind of stand in front of you. He is a southpaw, but he'll stand there, and he's not really known as a volume puncher, doesn't let off a lot of shots. There were definitely some times that he had Wilder up against the ropes and he was able to stop him, but ultimately, in the fifth round, he rolls off of Deontay's right hand and throws a right hook, um, literally spinning Deontay Wilder around. And when Deontay turned around, Zhang hit him with another hook and knocked him unconscious. And that was the end of the fight. And this will also probably mark the end of the Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder, who, again, had a great career. But, you know, nobody
writings on the wall.
it's very tough to get a fairy tale ending in fighting, especially in real life. So that was the conclusion of the 5v5, and Queensberry Promotions got a absolute clean sweep. They won every single fight on the card. Every single one. With that, We will slide over to the other combat sporting event we will be covering today, which is UFC 302. Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. That fight card opened up with Randy Brown versus Dos
Eliseu
Santos.
Zaleski dos Santos.
Yeah, and you know what? Since you can say that name, you can have that first one.
Sorry. So this is basically Randy Brown on his campaign trying to make a case for himself being in the top 15 now. Dos Santos is unranked, but like, yo, as an opponent, I'm not ashamed to say that I kind of slept on Dos Santos's like pedigree because he's got some notable wins over folks, right? Hold on. Let me load more. I'm on the UFC because they were talking about like he's got some wins that have actually aged really well. Let me
Mm-hmm.
see if I can. He's got a win over Sean Strickland. He's got a win over who else? He's got a win for Muscle. Oh no, he lost to Muscle Salikov. He's got a win over Benoit Saint Denis. Now, why am I mentioning these two in particular? Because we saw Benoit Saint Denis fight against Dustin Poirier not too long ago, right? And up until that point, he was kind of like on this unstoppable streak. And of course, having a win over Sean Strickland, who touched UFC gold, that's not a bad look on your resume. So with that being said, it's like, hey, Dos Santos has been fighting for a while. Don't sleep on him. He's not exactly somebody you want to disregard. With that being said, too, he's got like a strong capoeira background, but make no mistake, the dude's got hands, he's got takedowns, he's got submissions. And then Randy Brown, I like I love him and I hate him. Uh Love him because he's like really good at fighting at range. He's a very long, lanky individual, but I hate him because he's like my height and cuts down to 170. I just don't understand how he doesn't die in that process. But he has been on quite a tear. His only significant loss, if you take a look at his past like 5 fights, was his loss to JDM, Jack Della Maddalena. And it was a crazy one too because Jack Della Maddalena submitted him, but that was after he like starched him with a punch in true Della Maddalena fashion. But all that to say, it wasn't like Randy Brown got the dominant like the decision win, unanimous decision win, and he did a good job in terms of his grappling defenses of always stopping Eliseu from being able to finish the rear naked choke, finish the submissions, but it wasn't Randy Brown's best performance. However, I think he did deserve the win. That's what I will say. Dos Santos had his moments, but like shit, Dos Santos could have had round two, but Randy Brown kind of stole it from him. Like as soon as Randy Brown was able to escape the back control, he hopped on Dos Santos's back and tried to finish it. So it was what it is. It was the opener of the main card, and I think it kind of set the tone as far as like what to expect. There were a few outliers, but that's just what it is. I'm gonna pass it over to you, Matt. What you think?
You know, to be honest with you, I actually was kind of happy with Randy Brown's performance. Um, I felt like Randy Brown he's at his best when he can fight athletic and at long range, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like for the most part he did that. Um, I felt like he showed a good improvement in his ground game and in his wrestling where I feel previously his height had been a hindrance to him,
Mm.
and he actually is starting to use it a little bit more to his benefit. Now, obviously, I don't know anything really about grappling, but I do know that uh his height is something that can either be an Achilles heel or, a weapon for him depending on, what his how he's been taught. So, overall, I thought the right person won the fight. Thought it was the right decision. I thought Dos Santos trying to go to the grappling was definitely the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
But also not diving for that leg because you got caught with that flying knee. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Randy has shown that he will throw that shit. You know what I'm saying? So
He
that's
spammed
just,
it.
yeah, that's a thing you got to be careful about because you got caught with it. And can you blame him for spamming it if he's landing it?
No,
No, not really. You know,
unintentional bar.
can't blame him. Yeah, unintentional bar, you're right. But yeah, that was my thoughts on that fight. Uh, you want me to take us to our next one?
Yeah.
All right. Well, next up we had Nico Price versus Alex Morono. Um, I was excited because I forgot Nico Price was on this card, and I was like, "Oh man, cool, another Nico Price fight." I haven't seen
So
Nico Price fight in a minute.
they were replacing Jalton Almeida versus Romanov.
Oh,
Like it was
really?
supposed to be a heavyweight bout in that spot, but I guess something happened. Fight got canceled, and then Price and Morono stepped up.
Well, um, I felt like for the most part they did what they were supposed to do. This fight was what weight was this fight at? What weight did they fight this fight at? This fight was at
Welter.
welterweight. Yeah, I forget because he's gone up to middleweight before.
Hmm.
This fight was at welterweight. Now, to be honest with you, to me, Nico Price fights his best when it's chaotic. When he's in a chaotic situation, that's when I feel like he, does his best work. I mean, look, he has a win over Alex Oliveira. You know what I'm saying? Um, he has he has a win over Donald Cerrone. He has a win over James Vick. He has a win over Tim Means. He even has a knockout win over Randy Brown.
Hmm.
Um, so those it's just things like that that you got to consider when you fighting a guy like that. And I think um, Alex Morono is a very disciplined and a very well schooled guy. Um, Very talented black belt in jujitsu. He's got some good names on his resume as well. But to be honest, I feel like he was just overmatched as far as pace. And yeah, I think pace really more than anything was just the biggest differential between the two. It felt like Nico was making him work all 5 minutes, whether it was offensively or defensively. And it was at a pace that Nico could keep, and it just didn't feel like Alex could. Like later in the third round, when they were still, during the fight, still, he was throwing labored head kicks and things like that, and it was like he was burnt up.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those, Nico is like a guy that he can get in a million scrambles around and be okay. And like from what I understand within the world of grappling, scrambling is exhausting.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of scrambles within this fight, and scrambles after taking some pretty solid headshots from punches and a few decent body kicks. I imagine is not very fun.
You are correct.
Um, Ultimately, the fight was very messy. It was very chaotic, and because of that, Nico Price was able to come out on top. Um, and Nico walked away with a unanimous decision victory. I will pass it over to TJ.
Uh, this is what I'm gonna say. Alex Morono took this fight on short notice, and that's kind of his thing. And it's a gamble, but the one thing about taking something short notice is that you have the built-in excuse, right? If things don't go your way, I took this on short notice. And then if you manage to get the dub, it's like sweet, right? But in this case, the stamina just was not there. Uh, Chin was too high, and he just like they were saying something on the commentary booth, John Nanick, Joe Rogan, Danny Cormier, about how it seems like Morono kind of leaves power on the table because of the way he's bouncing his feet all the time, right? He can't
Hmm.
actually properly sit down and shift weight on his punches. Cause he was clocking, well, I wouldn't say clocking, but he was definitely hitting where he was supposed to be hitting on Nico Price, like chin, nose, etc. But there was
Yeah.
nothing really behind the punches to actually make a lasting effect. Nico Price is going to eat that shit and do damage. There were a few rounds where it's like you could see the difference in how they reacted to each other's hit, right? Nico Price eats it. Nico Price hits Alex Morono. He's like bouncing off the side of the fence, right? Um, but yeah, it's what it is.
Yeah.
Should we go into Holland versus Oleksiejczuk?
Yeah.
So we have Kevin Trailblazer Holland, who apparently self-admitted gatekeeper, versus Michal Oleksiejczuk, Polish Power, not Jan Blachowicz, but definitely has that mentality. We'll get into that. But we have Michal Husar Oleksiejczuk. See, when was the last time we saw him? Oh, versus when he fought against Michel Pereira back in March, and Pereira submitted him. I think this was disciplined Pereira too, when he was making his bid at middle
Yeah.
or welter. Yeah, it was middleweight. Yeah, because Pereira had to move up because he couldn't make that weight no more. But with that being said, look, this fight, Kevin Holland, he's coming off two L's, two or three
Mm-hmm.
L's. Yeah, two L's, one to MVP, one to Jack Della Maddalena, and then before that he won and forcibly retired Michael Chiesa. Sorry, I'm laughing because of what he said to that man. It's like, bro, you good at commentary. He's like, you have a good heart. like just you're a good boy. Like go into commentary. I'm paraphrasing a lot. Uh, but yeah, Kevin Holland was coming off of two losses, one to Jack Della Maddalena, and then another to MVP. When did he fight? Wow, it was that long ago when he fought Wonder Boy was in December
Mm-hmm.
of 2022. Ain't
You
no
got to remember
way.
how busy he was,
Ain't
bro.
no way that was in December of 2020. I feel like that was like earlier this year.
No, brother.
What?
Kevin Holland was a busy man, brother.
Oh my God. But it caught up to him when he took those two L's. But needless to say, he was trying to get a W back, right? He got it. I was describing this off air in the sense that it was very chaotic, similar to Terrence McKinney versus Drew Dober.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at the first 30 seconds, you're like, oh shit, Kevin's gonna take another L. Because Oleksiejczuk dropped him with a right hand. Kevin falls by the cage, and in typical fashion, any fighter would do this, right? You drop your opponent, you pounce on, and you try to capitalize, right? You try to do a little ground and pound, but Kevin Holland's like, oh, wait, hold on, I have a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Okay, cool. Let me pull him into this guard right quick. Let me go ahead, grab that arm bar. Oh, he's leaning with it. All right, let's roll with him. He's trying to fight it. And then we see the most gruesome. Well, it's not the most gruesome, but it's definitely up there in terms of violence or displays of violence that we've seen in the octagon. So I think was it Joe Rogan who said it? Like you got to protect fighters from themselves, right? Kevin Holland has Michal Oleksiejczuk in Juji Gatame, which is your traditional armbar from the mounted position where you end up in like a crucifix like position on your opponent, right? So he's got Oleksiejczuk's arm between his legs, fully locked in, fully extended. Oleksiejczuk refuses to tap. Oleksiejczuk refuses to tap. We're all seeing this man's elbow in a hyperextended position. He's still not tapping. He's still trying to escape. Herb Dean is watching this, and I'm gonna say it on air. I think Herb Dean moved a little slow on this one. But uh
I
hey,
mean, we know why.
Kevin Holland snapped this man's arm
And this man was
live.
just eating it like that's what's up. No, bro, you
And
no,
and Herb D was like, hey, like nigga, hey, like just stepped in after the arm snap. I hated how they replayed it over and over. I hate watching
bro. He
limbs
still
break.
didn't tap.
He was
Keep
even
that in
contesting
mind.
it. He was contesting it.
Yeah, people at home, if you didn't see this fight, this man's arm was broken in the
Loose.
opposite direction. And he was like, but
Loose.
I didn't tap. And they was like, bro,
That's
your
not
arm.
you're literally fighting at like what 75% now. You lost one of your four limbs. But they had to save that man from himself. They called it a technical submission victory, but I was like, what was technical about it, bro? The arm, I want no almost submission. The arm was gone, dog. But
Yeah.
yeah, Kevin Holland got the dub via sub in a violent way. Then almost, well, kind of ruined the moment, but I'm not going to talk about that anyway. He did get
Mhm.
that performance of the night bonus, though. Any additional thoughts, Matt, before you take us into co-main?
Call the ambulance, but not for me. No, other than that, you pretty much covered it. I'll tell you this. I like I like the world where our co-main events are also 5 round fights.
I was surprised at that, but for a non-title on a pay-per-view, I was surprised they made it a 5 rounder.
Yeah.
But I guess it makes sense if it's like also like somebody competing for a number one contender spot,
Yeah, it was a
maybe.
title eliminator.
Yeah.
So we had Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. Um, so we got Paulo Costa who has attempted to become world champion at middleweight against Israel Adesanya and didn't wasn't unsuccessful. He was stopped. And then you have Sean Strickland, who also within that same title reign made an attempt and was able to dethrone Israel Adesanya. Immediately after that, fought Dricus Duplessis in his first title defense. No. Did he fight Dricus?
Sean Strickland. Yeah, he no. He lost Sean Strickland lost it to Dricus Duplessis. Duplessis.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was I think no, you're right. That was his first title defense. I thought you were talking
yeah.
about
So in
Dricus's
his
title defense. Yeah.
so in
My
his
bad.
first title defense, he loses the belt to Dricus Duplessis, right?
Hmm.
And now he's looking to get back into title contention. And who would you look at that? So it's Paulo Costa. So man, I thought this fight was going to go one very specific way, which was I thought an unstoppable force and an immovable object were going to meet in the middle.
But the
And
immovable object
man,
was moving backwards.
it turned out that that immovable object, like you said, was moving backwards. The entire fight, Sean Strickland kept Paulo Costa on his back foot. Paulo Costa, I can count maybe on both hands how many times over the course of 5 rounds he actually pressed the action forward.
Mm.
Sean Strickland was relentless in his pursuit coming forward, constantly kept him coming forward, that weird kind of twitchy style, kept raising his knee, then throwing a front kick. The front kicks were doing a lot of damage. That body was red by the end of that first
Surprisingly
round,
so, right?
doing a lot of damage with those front kicks to the body to Paulo Costa and burned him out. You
Yeah.
know, over he
Hard to get your breath back when you get a foot to the gut.
fighting on your back foot and getting kicked in the stomach every 10 seconds. You know what I'm saying? That's hard.
Yeah.
That just is difficult to deal with. And it was difficult to deal with for Paulo Costa. And he ultimately was burned out. You know, by the end of the fight, he ended up getting knocked down by a head kick. He blocked the head kick, but he was so exhausted that even the block of that head kick had knocked him off his feet. Um, it was just a tough fight for Paulo Costa. He kept him on the back foot the whole time. And I wouldn't say that Sean Strickland cruised to a unanimous decision, but he definitely didn't, he didn't have it wasn't a very
He
rough
didn't lose a
time.
round.
Yeah, he didn't lose a round. I'll definitely say that. I'll pass it to you, TJ.
Man, all I gotta say is aside from Dricus, where
Oh,
it's
also
like
he tried to throw that Fabricio front kick. His
yeah,
wasn't as beautiful though. But go
but
ahead.
it's like yeah, because he tried to capitalize on it toward the end. Um, aside from Dricus, no one has had an answer for Sean's press forward pseudo Philly shell type of style. And I think it's like, I mean, there are arguments that Dricus kind of didn't win their initial meetup, but uh, I feel like they both have awkward styles, and in that situation, the more awkward style won. But Paulo Costa, in this case, I'm surprised he didn't have an answer for it. But I've never faced that myself, so I can't really speak on it. But there's something about that style where it's not even necessarily a physical pressure so much as it is like a mental pressure. Like this nigga just keeps walking forward. I just kicked
Hmm.
him in the leg 17 times in the same spot. He's acting like it's nothing, right? Like something's got to be said for that. But look, man, it's just what it is. Uh, hey, let's get into our main event:
Okay.
Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier.
Oh, oh boy. What a ride.
I mean, is that the most that Is that the most Makhachev has ever worked?
Other than his literal only loss, yeah, that's also the most damage he's ever taken in a fight too.
Right. And it almost went the distance. Damn
It-
near.
Literally.
Like
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
I'm just like I wanted Poirier to win. He was my pick for this one. Not that I didn't think that Islam was a slouch or whatever. Like, if anything, like, we've seen what Islam could do. I'm just saying, like, it's Dustin Poirier, man. Like, he'll catch you with an uppercut, he'll catch you with a left hand, and all of a sudden the tide has turned into his favor. And I just feel like his wrestling, look, yes, Islam had a takedown every round. He had 5 takedowns, but he made 15 or 16 attempts. This is Islam Makhachev, and Dustin Poirier only made this man be able to land 5. So like Dustin definitely was working on his wrestling defense, and it was beautiful to watch. I'm not even gonna hold you. It was like cool seeing him like, oh, he stops ahead, turns around, kicks his leg out, is ready with the sprawl, ready, like feet apart, hips set. Like Dustin, he actually listened to his corner. Like when
He didn't jump the ghillie.
like yeah, compared to last time we're like, hey, no more guillotines. And he's like, oh, more guillotines, right? No more I got you, I got you. So you want more, right? No, it wasn't that at all. He stuck to the game plan, and bro, I personally think he almost had it. Like he
Yeah.
was the visual damage he was putting on Islam was different. Um, but I think it's just like the fumble. I remember, I correct me if I'm wrong, they said he might have hurt his knee, and I think it was when he was escaping that final takedown attempt in round 5 when Islam was like, I can't do any more stand up with this dude. It is not going in my favor.
Yeah.
And Dustin effectively slips out of it, but he kind of stays stuck on his bent leg for a little bit too long. And then Islam goes full National Geographic with a pounce or like a Brian Dawkins tackle. Um, and
Mhm.
fucking just like jumps on his back, tries to go for the guillotine. Dustin fights out of the guillotine, but then Islam makes an adjustment and switches from the guillotine to a Darce choke, a head and arm choke, and ultimately finishes that Darce choke and gets the tap like with like what 2.5 ish, 2 minutes and some
Two and a
change left
half.
in the
Yeah.
round.
2 and some change left.
And it was just
It
damn.
was 2 minutes and 42 seconds into that round.
I couldn't believe like Dustin was so close. I mean, we would have seen how the scorecards went, right?
If
But
oh, so if it went to the scorecards, if he didn't get choked, if he doesn't get stopped, if it goes to the scorecards, what do you say?
I could
You
see
gotta
a split.
be realistic.
I could see a split decision.
That's not what
But
I asked you. Yeah, okay, you see a split decision. I don't give a fuck. Who do you think won?
all right, nigga, stop pressing me.
Yeah, yeah, gun to
It
your
would have
head. Yeah.
probably gone Makhachev. If you don't take it from the champ, they won't uh they won't give it to you.
What rounds did you give Dustin?
I feel like last round,
Being round 4 or 5?
I'd say round 5, and I'd give him round 4 too. And I feel like I'd give him round 1.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see that argument for. I can see the argument for rounds 1 and 4, especially because he was able to get out of so much shit in that first round.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, round 5 for me, it's like up to the point where it went National Geographic.
Damn. Yeah, I get you.
I mean, it's hard not to root for Dustin Poirier, is what I'm ultimately getting at.
No, bro. I mean, Dustin Poirier is like what's that term? A fighter's fighter. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
That's really what it is. That's really the only way to describe it. He really liked that, you know.
yeah.
Um, we'll never see. He's God, man. He's like the greatest guy to never win the title in that
Mm-hmm.
division. He's Dustin Poirier's like if Frankie Edgar never got a title run, like if he
Mm,
never got just one.
mm.
You know, it's like he's won the interim, which he can always hang his hat on that.
Hmm.
Um, but fuck, man, it's like, he didn't win the BMF. He didn't beat Islam for the lightweight. He didn't beat Charles for the lightweight. He didn't beat Khabib for the lightweight. Um, it's just tough, man.
Yeah,
It's just tough because it's also like, again, when you go back and you look at the division, it's like, who's gonna beat him
monsters.
though?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like Benoit Saint Denis
Sonny
was
couldn't do
like,
it. He was
he's the type of guy that's like, okay, hold on. Like this is the new generation of the guys within this division, right?
right
And then Dustin Poirier's like, yeah, I'm gonna knock him the fuck out.
and try to jump the Gilly.
Yeah, I'm always try to jump to Gilly, but like, okay, so what's left at lightweight? A rematch possibly with Charles Oliveira. You got Arman Sukrayan, you got Gaethje. I mean, not Gaethje no more. I mean, shit. I mean, Gaethje is there, but like, given what just happened
Mm,
with Max, but Max left. Max done skipped town.
mm,
You got Mateus, you got whatever the result of the Michael Chandler fight is.
mhm.
It's just kind of hard to see
What the pathway for him is.
what the pathway, yeah, really what the pathway is. I mean, other than that, it's just, the reign of Islam continues, and not at shit. I'm not hating on it. It's just this is more so for Dustin than anybody else because what's left?
Right.
You gonna not gonna have him rematch Charles, or maybe you do have him rematch Charles, and then what happens if he beats him? You give him a,
Hmm.
a fourth title shot.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe at some point he can. Oh no, he already fought Michael Chandler, so that's already done. And I would say, respectfully, Brunel Dariush or like Fiziev are like kind of beneath Dustin Poirier a little bit.
Yeah.
That's definitely not. That's no disrespect to those guys, but I just feel like, given the work and given who this guy is,
Hmm.
But
No,
I
you're
don't know.
making sense. You're making sense.
Islam made a good case for itself to remain at number one of 8 pound for pound ranking. So
Yeah.
good for him. He'll be there until John Jones fights again, and then they'll just flip the rankings again.
Right.
But he's got John at number 2 for now, so we'll see what happens. TJ, do you have anything else that you wanted to put on that for that last fight?
Uh, Probably my favorite fight on the card.
Yeah, easily,
Yeah.
easily. That shit was like a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say it was my favorite fight of the night as well. That and the Trailblazer fight, the Kevin Holland.
Oh,
Kevin Holland fight was great.
it was awesome. I just don't like limbs breaking like that.
No, I get
It's
that.
very
I
visceral.
get it and respect it.
Yeah.
With that, next week, what we will be covering is UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Imavov.
Get your notes out. Get your picks ready, y'all.
Get your
Let's get it.
picks out.
Let's
We
get ready. Let's
got.
get into that right now, actually.
We're gonna go with the main card to kick it off.
Hmm.
We'll start from the top and work our way down. Jared Cannonier versus Imavov. I'm gonna go Cannonier.
Cannonier, bro.
Alex Perez versus
Dominic
Tatsudo
Reyes.
Taira.
Oh wait,
No,
is it?
Alex Perez.
Hold on the UFC website. Where are you looking? Are you looking on ESPN or UFC's website?
I am on Google. UFC Fight Night. I'm looking at the card laid out right here.
Cannonier versus who's he fighting? Imavov.
Yeah.
Really? Why is this so different from main event is co-main is?
Nigga,
What the fuck is going on here?
I don't know. Your Beyonce internet is broke. Make you pick Alex Perez or Tatsudo Taira.
Well, I don't know who Tatsuro is, so I'm gonna go Perez. But I
All
don't even
right.
know, is that main card? Because the UFC
Yes.
website is saying That is not that, bro.
They saying
Go
that fight is not on the main card.
no, hold on. Let me.
What's the co-main? Oh, the co-main is Dominic Reyes. Mine is mixed up.
Yes,
Hold on, let
nigga.
me refresh the page.
These
You
niggas was
still could
out
have
here
made a
making
pick.
me think I'm crazy.
Are you not?
I don't like the way you said that. I don't
Hmm.
like the implication. I
Hmm.
resent that, sir.
Well, now that we got everything correct, Dominic Reyes and Dustin Jacoby.
I'm gonna go Jacoby because I don't think Reyes has been the same for a long time. And based on who is on this, are they fighting for their jobs right now?
Possibly. I think Dominic Reyes has had enough time off, and I think he'll be all right.
We'll see. Dustin Jacoby has won one out of his last three, so I don't know. He could be on the cusp.
I'm gonna go with Dominic.
All right. Uh, Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Tercios.
Hold on. Is this what I think this is? Ricky Tercios. I'm gonna go Ricky Tercios because I like that he makes all that noise
Is
and
he the
sprays the
one
shit
who
at
goes
people. Yes.
Bengale Bengale? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go Tercios too.
Yeah, I
You
like
going
Tercios. I just think he's entertaining. I actually have nothing against Raul Rosas at all. I'm
yeah.
pure picking this off of entertainment factor. I'm not picking it for no other reason.
Bruno Ferreira versus Dustin Stoltzfus.
Mm,
Have I
let's
seen
see.
Ferreira fight before? I feel like I may have seen him fight before.
I'm gonna go with Fajeda.
Oh, he's coming off of two L's. One was against Phil Hawes, and the one was against Nursultan Ruzaboyev.
Yeah, I'm still going with Fajeda.
All right, and then he's got a win over Rodriguez,
Mm-hmm.
the man who's not allowed, Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop, who's not allowed to smile for at least 3 more years.
Yep.
All right, I might have to go against Fajeda because if you got to win over Gregory, Hands, RoboCop, Rodriguez, uh, ain't nothing personal, Stoltzfus. All right, then we got Julian Marquez versus Zachary Reese. Not familiar with either
Mm,
of these fighters.
yeah, I'm not familiar with either guy. I'm gonna go with Zachary Reese
Yeah,
because
he looks like he's got something up his sleeve.
yep.
Something about that unkempt mullet. It's like telling me he might know something we don't.
Yeah, we might have to consult Bryce on that one.
Then last one, the opener is Miguel Baeza versus Punahele Soriano. I'm never going against the Polynesians, dog. Soriano. Like,
Yeah, I'm with
no,
you.
nothing personal. It's just they got something else cooking. Um,
Yeah, something else cooking is
I
crazy.
listen. Uh, look, bro. Look, I I'm not gonna elaborate. Anyway, that's it. That's our
We
picks. That's our picks, y'all. We'll see if they come to fruition.
will see if they come to fruition. That's what we will be covering for you guys next week on Combat. Thank you guys so much for rocking with us. This has been another episode of the Now Mind You podcast. You can follow us all on social media. You can follow me at Matt Hambrick. That's MatThambricktj.
Y'all can find me on Instagram at Tuss4skate. That's TUSS number 4_SKATE. And y'all can find Bryce on Instagram at Ashe_Onta. That's AXE_ONCA.
Bay,
Baby.
Bay.
Baby. Where can they find the podcast?
They can find us at Now Mind You Podcast, wherever you like to get your podcast and wherever you like to get your social media. We're on all of those outlets. With that being said, we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Peace out.
Peace.